Panel Discussion 2, Promoting Active Employee Engagement and Teamwork, Fostering DE&I, and Inspiring Collaboration in the Modern Workplace for Effective Interactions. I introduce our moderator, Ms. Bhavishya Dabral, Head of Learning and Organization Development at Excitel Broadband. Ms. Dabral is a distinguished leader in talent management and organization development with around 15 years of experience. With a Delhi University topper in applied psychology, she excels in succession planning, behavioral assessments, engagement initiatives, training interventions, and career management. Currently leading learning and organization development at Excitel Broadband, she is dedicated to driving growth and fostering collaborations. I also invite on the dais our fellow panelists, Mr. Samuel Siddhanthi, Director of Capability Development at Coforge, Ms. Ruby Khan, Head of Learning, Talent, Organization Development and Diversity at Luminous, Mr. Jagjit Singh, Head of L&D at Subway, Mr. Satish Mohapatra, Vice President and Head of Central HR and Chief Diversity Officer at Maruti Suzuki India Limited, Mr. Jag Pravesh Chand Gupta, L&D Head, India and South Asia at Accor, and Mr. Gaurav Mathur, Vice President of Learning and Development at Anarok Consultants Private Limited.
Hi, everyone. Um, as an L&D leader, I've always been, thinking about how it is the essence of an organization to be able to build a culture that people would want to work for. And what better place than this panel discussion or even the context that we are a part of today. I am very thrilled to welcome you all, and we hope that together we would be able to share certain insights that you all will look forward to. Throughout my journey as an L&D professional and even as an HR consultant, which has been the larger part of my role, I have first-handed experience the power of a team which is very collaborative, the amount of boulders that they are able to move, the amount of work that they are able to deliver, stretching beyond their own limits, and that sooner or later becomes, the true story of how productivity increases in the organization. So it is something that's very beautifully knit in calling ourselves an organization, and hence we look forward to this conversation. So I have my long list of, laundry list of questions ready that I'm going to put forward to my thought leaders and trailblazers. We would largely be talking about collaboration, DEI as the theme, and gamification and engagement. So are we all ready? Great. All right. So my first question would be for you, Gaurav. They really say it is best when it's top-down. Yeah? So what strategies can leaders implement to inspire a culture of collaboration and innovation in the modern workplace?
Sure. Thank you so much. So I'll give you a little background of why I'm also very enthusiastic about collaboration. I represent a real estate consultancy called Anarok. For us, collaboration is a winning behavior, right? It's not just a thing that should be there. It's a good thing to have. No, it's a collaboration. It's a winning behavior for us. We have always realized we are achieving more in all aspects every time we collaborate. So a few things that we have implemented as a practice in terms of collaboration. I'll just share that with you. I feel collaboration also needs to be hard-coded in numbers, in things that can be easily understood by anybody. All right. So I'll start with having a formal incentive policy for cross-selling across business teams. Right? In case you are sharing a lead, how much money are you going to make? Right? Have a very clear-cut incentive policy. The second thing is have some sort of weightage given to the goal sheet during the annual appraisal or whichever appraisal system that you follow. The goal sheet needs to have a weightage given to collaboration. At my organization, 15% weightage is to collaboration, 85% weightage is to performance. Right? The next is Institute an Award for collaboration. At Anarok, we have something called as Humans of Anarok, right? So it's an award given to individual or to teams who have done a clear-cut demonstration of collaboration. It's an annual award that's given, right? Then the other thing is the leaders should be looking at creating and sharing opportunities for collaboration. And how do you access all this information? So creation of bulletin boards or platforms where any employee or anybody who wants to see what all collaborative opportunities are there, you could just go and see where is it available. Right? Last, not the last, one more. Define functional and measurable performance matrices around collaboration. So, for example, my organization majorly deals with sales teams or business development. So we talk about, okay, if you're collaborating with any other team, how is it affecting productivity, right? Is it affecting revenue? That's one example. Then you can talk about business network teams, HR, admin. They can also collaborate. For them, a productivity measure could be how much cost saving are they doing, right? So that becomes a very clear-cut measure or a number that they can showcase as part of their collaboration effort. And lastly, showcase collaboration success stories. And that's something that we do in all our town halls. So all the town halls that we do at Anarok, there is a collaboration success story where we invite the team, they come on the dais, they share what they have achieved. And of course, you talk about the numbers, the productivity, how things have changed or moved through that collaboration effort. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Gaurav. Jag, I have a similar question for you, and I want to understand how are your leaders at Accor creating and inspiring that culture of collaboration?
All right, thank you. Well, thanks, Gaurav. Good points to gain a perspective around. I think collaboration and innovation, I'm gonna split this separately. I think for collaboration, what is really important is as L&D leaders or business partners, we gotta, and I'll second what you said, it has to go from top to bottom. Culture flows top to bottom, not the other way around. And it is not philosophical, guys. Do we understand the purpose? Is your purpose aligned with your reporting manager or stakeholder? Is that purpose aligned with what organization wants to achieve? Let's be practical, guys. Most of the organizations, and I can talk about hospitality because that's where I have primarily worked. In hotels, typically we would do strategy sessions, which is like once a year activity, and then throughout the year, every day we are only focusing on numbers. What's the deficit, business on books, the current challenges, day-to-day challenges, but you're not looking at the big picture. If you're constantly not looking at the big picture, do you even remember why do we come to work? Or is it just every day come, do your job and go back, right? A simple activity can give you a great insight to how organizations are behaving. Just write down, why do you exist for 2024? Ask your team to write down the same on a small piece of chit paper and see, are you guys aligned? So when we talk about collaboration, I think it's really important for us to be aligned that why do we exist? Why do we come to work, right? That's one. Innovation, I think quickly I'm going to touch base. Everybody talks about innovation. Do we really know how to go about it? Is there a formal way to innovate, or you have to sit under an apple tree, right? So as L&D business partners, it's really important for us to invest in basic fundamentals and go back and nurture our teams, give them the opportunity, give them platform, but teach them. How do we innovate? Those are some of the formal ways I think that can really work around. I can tell you at Accor, we try and constantly nudge our hotels as business partners, saying that whatever you have defined or identified for your hotels, periodically you have to remind your team. what's on my mind is only sellable. So unless I'm not reminding it constantly to my other stakeholders, chances are that all of us, we are pretty much occupied with our day-to-day daily transactional activities. And that's where we lose our strategic initiatives. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. So that it doesn't really look like I'm going sequential, and I should also kind of give a challenge to my speaker. Samuel, I want you to go next to that question. So we really would love to hear from you. How can DI initiatives be integrated into team building and collaboration efforts?
Sure. Thanks for asking that question. My favorite speaker, Simon Sinek, always says start with the why. So I'm going to structure this response in, starting with why, what, and how. I think the why was pretty clear for us to define it. 26,000 workforce globally, 50 nationalities. So it made really sense or compelling for us to go back and say, hey, listen, we got to have a DI charter in place. And why? Because different nationalities, people, at least even in India as well, right? We were hiring folks coming from different backgrounds. So I think with the DI chapter, the vision for us came out beautifully. It said, bring your true self to work. So that became the why. That became a thought for us, a deep down thought, drove our values, drove our conversations with leaders, stakeholders, and so on and so forth. Now the what part of it, right? So you've got the why, you've got a 60,000 feet viewpoint in place. How do we put it into practice, right? So part of a DI chapter, we've got 4 principles in place. The number one is leadership advocacy. The second one is the DI ecosystem. And I'll quickly give you some nuggets into each pillars as well. The third one is awareness and development programs, and the last one being well-being. Interestingly, the leadership advocacy is we're not just getting leaders, internally to come and talk about what is DI or become allies, right? Or establishing the conversation how, we should be going ahead. What we did was we also went out. And not out as in, going out to speakers in the market, but we went to our clients. I said, listen, we are doing these engagements or this program or this conversation. Who can we bring on board as a speaker and talk about, from a client's perspective, right? How's their DI journey? How's their, and most so we were getting a lot of women speakers on board. So that became part of our leadership advocacy to have leaders talk about it. So there was this alignment, there was this one language, and more importantly, it also became part of our, goal sheet as well. So CO -1, 2 all have that part of their goal sheet. So that became a compelling action. The next piece was the DI ecosystem, right? So what are we creating, right? I mean, as we talk about Apple ecosystem, right? Or everyone's on Apple and using multiple products. Similarly for us, what is the DI ecosystem? So we went back and started thinking, how do we create compelling, information? How do we share? So let's say the CEO and the board members are there. What information are we sharing with them? So we created a DI dashboard, right? And every month, which has, of course, multiple elements, part of the dashboard, being shared with, the leaders at large. Then we started looking at, okay, what else are available for us in the organization? So that ecosystem became so strong, people were part of it, and it's not just saying, hey, I'm pushing it down, down your throat, but saying people were raising hands and saying, hey, listen, I want to be part of that ecosystem. How do I do that? How can I become an ally? The third thing was awareness and development programs, right? And, and let me just give you one example, right? How many of you have heard about this program run by Google, #I'mRemarkable? Just raise your hand. Beautiful. So 2 people, fantastic. But Google it, because it's run by Google, so why not Google it? What's the whole story behind that I'm remarkable? Imagine yourself, I mean, as Neha called out, visualize, right? Think about it. If I had to ask you about your achievements, and how many of those achievements can you remember and talk about? And I realized in that program, it was a group of 20-member cohort, and I was the only guy, as only male out there, and 19 women, if I may use the word women. And there was question was asked, what was that achievement? And everyone was talking about things like, hey, I learned how to bake a cake. And for me, I was thinking about, hey, did I make a big achievement? Did I, impact the business? So in my mind, that was an achievement. So this I'm Remarkable, we've got it down to Coforge, and we run this program with all our women leaders at different levels. And it was a huge program, so that's one. Secondly, for new hires, we ensure, and compliance is under my role as well, so we ensure people go through posh compliance programs. We ensure people go through unconscious bias, so that was another aspect to it. And the last, pillar is well-being. Let me not get into much about it because all of us in our organizations have that. So we've got the whole EAP contract in place. We've got conversations around it. For example, we do Wellness Wednesdays, right? So we're having conversations out there. Now the last piece of my structure is how do we do it? As I said, the CEO in his goal sheet has that, and -2, -1, -2 also have that. We run a lot of these campaigns throughout the year. So it's not a tick in the box activity for us. So when you talk about how do we create collaboration, team building, right? We've got these campaigns in place, and it's not the onus of HR to do it. I think the business is involved. There's that stake in there. So that's my take.
Great. I think what I've learned from the first 3 questions here is you have to make it a part of the system. So you'd have to repeat. You probably would have to include this in your business interactions as an important piece, as a critical piece, which isn't just something that the HR folks are doing. So that probably helps it move from something that's being out there to becoming a part of us and our organization's identity. Thank you so much. All right, my next question is for you, Ruby. And an honest confession, I stalk you a lot on LinkedIn because you do a lot of stuff around people, which is my area of interest. So here's what I think you probably would be able to help my audience today. How do you sustain a culture of DEI within an organization?
Good afternoon, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here in front of such an august audience and panelists. I always start my conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion with a very beautiful quotation saying, diversity is a fact, inclusion is a choice. Sneha and Alka, I'll build up a lot of things from where you left during your conversation here in the panel today. The latest World Economic Forum report states it will take us 132 years to achieve gender parity. India may lose 46 lakh crore due to gender inequality, as per McKinsey, and representation of women is 12% in manufacturing, which is actually one single-digit number, because when I say manufacturing, it includes all ancillary industries. To answer your question, as per HBR report, as per HBR Article 2022, every organization has a DEI maturity phase. It starts with awareness, compliance, tactical, integrated, and sustainable. It is a choice that an organization needs to make where they want to be, right? Ideally, if you want to sustain diversity, equity, and inclusion, you should have leadership as your sponsor. And I'm not saying ally, a sponsor. In our organization, our sales head is our sponsor. I have worked in an organization where we had women representation at 2%, and I've also worked with an organization where we had a women representation of 24%, right? But what made a difference is when business starts running and driving the agenda of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because what we look forward to is allyship. What we also look forward to is a very clear agenda of sponsorship from business. To be very frank, if we have to sustain diversity, equity, and inclusion, the day organization will stop hiring me as a DEI practitioner is the day I will arrive in life. Because we keep talking about business case, but we still end up talking about diversity numbers, women representation, people with disability, LGBTQ, and what will be the hiring ratio. I think we need to move beyond numbers and look at how do we build an inclusive mindset. To what Sneha mentioned, which is a beautiful quote of Varna Myers, which says, diversity is invited for a party, inclusion is calling for dance, equity is also enjoying the party irrespective of whether I make a choice to dance or not. Yeah? So I think creating and sustaining the culture will only happen when business starts driving it, not HR and DEI practitioners. Yeah? Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'm happy that I'm stalking you for the right reasons. And I love stalking. All right. My next question is for you, Satish. What are some best practices for creating inclusive and equitable team environments that support diverse perspectives and contributions?
Thank you. And before I start, I want to thank you for having me here. The Gain Skills Better Place Head Force on this conference. Really, I was really impressed hearing all the perspectives that came, and thanks to you for putting it in a nice flow so far. So you said equity and inclusive culture, right? Yeah. So, I would talk from three perspectives that a company needs to address so that people, I mean, some of the best practices I will also share with from what we do and what many of you are also, I'm sure, would be doing. If you ask me, there are three, it's a tripod. There is culture, there is conversations that you need to have around the topic, and then the codes or the policies. Yeah. When we talk about culture, I mean, most companies which are successful, and I'm repeating the word successful in their business, generally tend to have a talking culture rather than having a listening culture. And because the success makes you believe that the leaders particularly, that they know it the best. And the youngsters and everyone has to just listen to them, and then the business is secured for the future. But what brought you here will not get you there. And that is why the first thing I would talk about equity and inclusion is to listen to what your people say. And yes, many of us do employee engagement surveys on a periodic basis, but then do we have a real-time listening mechanism? Do people, what about psychological safety? Buying a tool and deploying it is one thing, but where most of us fail is it gets limited to HR making a presentation to the MD or the board, and then some more slides get made and that's it. But whether every manager, like for example, what we do is, I represent Maruti Suzuki India Limited, which is, 42% of the cars on Indian roads we make, in simple terms. What we do is every manager who's got 6 or more reportees get a cut of their team's report with them, and then every manager at every department level, but division level, vertical level, need to do action planning with their HR, which is conveyed to people, and the questions are asked in the next survey. That's one way. In addition, there are ways where how to do real-time listening so that people feel included. So there are milestones, Suppose somebody is joined today, 30 days back. Their challenges is different, whether they've got a laptop or a place to sit. Somebody who's got 60 days, maybe the question, as you rightly pointed out, Ruby, that do they feel included as part of their team? If they go out for lunch, do they call them? Yeah? I've completed 90 days. Then the question to me could be that, do I know my targets? Do I understand my role well? Have I had got at least one good meeting with my manager which has inspired me? So these are, you need to ask different questions to different people. So we actually have something called a CLO, a Chief Listening Officer, which is a digital persona, which actually asks this targeted set of people different questions. Then there are moments that matter in our career. Yeah? A role change, a manager change. Sometimes a manager change is as good as changing a job. Yeah? So all these points are we listening to our people. Second, have conversations. Somebody spoke about gender neutral. I think the previous session, the speaker was talking about having, are our people using gender neutral terms or not? Or are we still always referring to the customer as he? Yeah. And so apart from this, the last part, which is actually the litmus test as per me of equity and inclusion, I'm not repeating what has already been spoken about diversity, well, which has 4 pillars, which is not just gender, it's pride, ability, and society, and you need to make policies which are inclusive for all of them. But last, once having done that and you think that you have done a great job and made some policy, do you care to ask your people before implementing whether they like it, and if they suggest changes or if they don't like it, are you bold enough to withdraw it? We recently actually withdrew one of our working hour related regulations because we found that more than 50% of people don't like it. Yeah. If I go back to my career, the organizations that time would have felt it will be a loss of face for us. And who's the power center here? We have to make policies. The HR department will think like, today the times are changing. We need to listen. We need to course correct. And that is the only way to make people truly empowered and truly included. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Satish. Jagjit, I have a trick one for you. See, gamification is here to stay, and it is picking up momentum, and it is becoming the talk of HR town and employees also as well. So I'm sure you've experienced this in your organizations. So could you help us know what are the benefits and challenges of integrating gamification and similar interactive elements into employee engagement and collaboration initiatives?
Okay, great. So thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And Bhavishya, with the way you are putting questions to every one of us, it's really, really insightful and challenging. But thank you for collaborating so effectively. So I'll talk about gamification, and I think it is important for us to make work fun for our people, and that's where gamification really plays a very, very important role, right? Now, I am representing Subway out here, and we were trying to create a kind of a zone for our employees wherein training is not a push for people, but it is a pull for people, right? Because push can get you temporary results, pull will get you sustainable results. Now, what we did was, in terms of gamification, we linked the career progression of an employee with what we want them to learn at Subway, right? So how we did that, using the principle of 70-20-10, wherein 70% of the learning of an employee happens through on-job training. What we did was we created some tools into our LMS system, wherein we made somebody a buddy trainer to an employee, and that person has to verify whether the new joiner who has come into the company is really practicing all those things on day-to-day basis or not. And then when the manager verifies, right, that particular person, at every point the person is able to clear the stage that we have defined into the roadmap. The person gets some points. Collectively, when all the points come together, right, is when the person is going to be eligible to go to the next level. So for example, a sandwich artist who typically makes your favorite subs, when you go to any of the Subway store and you eat the sub, we don't call them our team members, we call them as our sandwich artist. So the sandwich artist who makes sandwiches for you has to undergo that particular assessment, and then when he or she is able to clear that assessment, he or she gets some points to it. And the second way of achieving points is if in case there are some self-learning modules that are being assigned to you, right? Have you completed that on time or not? So for example, globally we are required to get a course done for all the employees, and if in case an employee completes that course in 21 days span of time, which we tested that can be done in 21 days, we tend to give them 400 points. Versus a person who completes that in 42 days, he or she will get 100 points. So again, I am pulling the people to come and learn on its own. And then the third thing is instructor-led trainings, which we deliver. If you become a part of the program and you also undergo assessment. You achieve this much score, you get these many points. Collectively together, if you achieve, for example, 4,200 points, is when you become eligible to go from where you are to where you want to go, right? Each level has got this kind of a gamification being embed. Now, benefits are huge. Benefits are like, there were very increased engagement that we had. We never had to push people to come and be a part of the LMS. Okay, our ratio, or I would say our people on the platform were coming 95% after launching this particular program. Learning was a pull. We were doing a lot of team building activities. There was healthy competition happening in the organization so that the right people grow, and it's not manager-led, it's system-led. And last but not the least, we were getting some data insights which were helping us to get who is our top performers, who are the green performers, who are the yellow performers, and who are the red performers, so that we can really tell business on how do we have to manage each level. Challenges were also huge. When we communicated this thought process to our leaders, what came across was a resistance to change. Okay, so the resistance was about why do we have to do that? But then you had to really bring it on the platform, show them some case studies so that they can buy that particular point. Of course, it had some implementation complexities, so we had to really work hard with our LMS vendor to get it corrected, to get it embed. And then last but not the least was people were having some kind of a challenges in terms of accepting and acknowledging this particular change. What we did was we launched a play framework to make people understand that, PLAY, and I really would want to call it out. Play means, so when we were actually sponsoring and talking about it to our organization, we said P in for play stands for purpose, on why are we doing it. So we clearly defined the purpose behind it. Then we leverage and we told them the ways in which the employees will get benefit, right? So that the business really buys what we are trying to sell across to them. Everybody in the panel is saying we have to take business together, right? It should not be in isolation. Number 3, we had to adapt to organizational requirements too. So none of the training that we launch or we deliver is only input. We measure the input with the output. So we understand from the business on what the output we want to achieve after the training is done, and hence the input is in accordance. And last but not the least is we yield results and we communicate those results very, very strongly across. So this is the complete framework that we have used to make LMS a success for all of us at Survey, and it is really so far giving us results. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. As you spoke, we were able to visualize a lot of this, so hence I think gamification is doing its magic. Great, thank you so much, Jagjit. Jag, I have this question for you. In our experience, it is easy to start implementing all of these things when I have everybody come to work. But today is a hybrid work, and some of my people are working from home, some of my people are in office, and a huge set of people are out in the field. Easiest is to do fun Fridays with the people who are at work, right? The challenge is to really engage, include people who are not, at an arm's distance for me. So here's the question that I want to check with you. How can technology tools and platforms be leveraged to facilitate virtual collaboration and teamwork effectively?
It's quite challenging when it comes to service industry, wherein pretty much 99% of our task force, or rather 100% of our task force is practically required to be there. But okay, let me ask maybe here all of you guys, how many of us in our childhood time we were taught to focus? We were given lectures, focus, learn to study, right? Pay attention. How many of us were taught how to pay attention? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Very nice. Yeah. Sadly, I could not raise my hand for this question because I always struggled with that. I mean, how to focus, right? I mean, that was not even a question back then. I would only listen from my parents. And gradually I've realized that focus is not what you focus, that's the byproduct, right? Same thing is for collaboration in a virtual environment, I feel, because I would use two words, exploring and experimenting, and that's what we are trying to do, especially in our industry, since we never had this concept of work from home. Now in our administrative spaces is where we are exploring and experimenting. And we've realized that unless the individuals or the members who are working on a project or in team, they are not connected other than work, it's hard to achieve the byproduct, right? Using my title or my capacity to influence to get the job done, you may get certain tangible results, but if you want to go beyond that, that buy-in has to come from within, and for that, we need common grounds to stay connected. We're not 10 on 10 on this, but a couple of times we have explored and experimented around the concepts of passion groups or identifying common causes. I think about 2 years back, we partnered with one of the NGOs out of Bangalore, Godera. And with them, what we did was we tried identifying volunteers out of whatever you are good, other than your own working domain, how can you go back and contribute to the society? So that was a great way for us to come together. Other than the fact that we work for the same hotel and that's my job to do, we found that one way. Another aspect of collaborating virtually is the technology platforms and our awareness about that. I mean, unless you will not explore and experiment, it's hard. I can tell you last year, my boss, well, super boss, she practically, our core team is spread across from Cape Town till the New Zealand. And all of us, we had to come together for I won't call it a quick, but it was a quick because it was virtual. And we did in 2 days, 3 hours sort of strategy session. And we used a platform called Miro Board. If you're aware, then you know what I'm talking about. If not, go and explore. It's a fabulous platform. And if you know how to animate, it becomes such an immersive activity that sitting 3 hours straight for a discussion wherein you're not alone, there are 18 to 20 odd fellow colleagues of yours who are equally there responding with a little bit of pre-work can make it interesting. So I think to come back to the point, we have to explore and figure out more interactive, immersive ways to use these technological platforms. That's one. And I personally feel collaboration, whether it's virtual or in person, that's the byproduct. So don't focus on collaboration at work. Find out reasons to stay connected, because that will help you to stay aligned. Therefore, you achieve your desirable outcomes at workplace. Yeah, that's my thought. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jag. Gaurav, I have this question, I think, which is kind of building up on what Jag just shared. We wish to explore cross-functional collaboration a little more with you. So how can organizations create opportunities for employees to share knowledge, skills, and experiences across teams and departments?
Sure. So two important things that I want to talk about. First is the existence of or setting up of a system and a process for sharing this information. Then the second is incentivizing people to use it or to be part of it, right? I'll take an example of what we do at Anurag, right? We service clients. Every year we're onboarding close to 75 to 80 new clients. And when I say clients are developers across India, right? And each of these clients come up with different problems, and the solutioning becomes different each time, right? But what happens in Mumbai could also come up as a client problem in Gurgaon. Or what we are doing for a client in Pondicherry could also be a client problem in Goa. We don't know, right? How do we figure this out? So we've created a system where the head of the project or head of the location or the business unit, whatever is applicable, has to mandatorily file in a closure report. And it's a fairly exhaustive closure report, which talks about the top challenges, the success of the project. If it's not a successful project, they file in a lot of information regarding their project as they close on the project or the client, right? If they do not, as I said, we incentivize. So each city, business unit, they are all ranked as per how much process adherence are they following, which is then, part of an impact which they feel during their appraisal. And I'm not talking about middle management. I am talking about business head level or maybe a city MD level position, right? So they're not just delivering revenues, but also managing P&Ls, and part of their payouts would also depend on how much adherence to the process are they following, right? So two things to sum up my answer: the existence or the setting up of a system, of the processes, and proper incentivization so that people use it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Samuel, when I heard you say 50 nationalities, I decided that this one has to come to you. How can organization address challenges related to cultural differences and communication barriers in global or diverse teams?
Thanks for asking that question. I wish I had an answer to that. Or if I had a Bible which says, look at this and you'll get the answer. I think, what's the reality, right? I mean, we all work for global distributed organizations, right? We've got workforces spread across. I used to do this activity called virtual teams about 10 years back. And I used to ask this question to my learners or participants. I said, what's that one challenge or, challenges that you come across working in a virtual team? And one thing that kind of resonated across cohorts or groups that I ran this was communication, right? I think if you, and I kind of looked and I asked them, okay, can you go beyond communication, right? What does that mean? I think things like language, things like understanding, interpretation, blah, 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 that came out. I think a key thing that came out was understanding the other person's, mindset, thought process, what are the lenses they are wearing, and, Now, that was about 10, 12 years back. And as I said, I don't have one answer, but I think one of the things that's really working well for us at Coforge, and let's talk about that, right, is, a couple of years back, we acquired a platform, and I'd say it's not an acquisition in terms we don't own them, acquired as in we got them on board, is a platform called GlobeSmart. And let me check, how many of you have heard about this org called GlobeSmart? Aperion. So they have this platform called GlobeSmart. What it does is, it's got about 120 countries' profiles, cultural profiles on it, right? Now, one way to do that is I asked, let's say, Ruby to go ahead and create a profile and get her strengths, her work style as per the culture, right? India as a culture she selects. But the other piece is, how do we make it like a process, right? Like, how do we ensure that people really understand, let's say if I'm going to Japan, do I understand the Japanese culture? I mean, there could be similarities, right? But do I really understand, right? So how do I know that, right? So this tool that we launched kind of empowers people to kind of understand the other person's, other different regions, cultures, and so on and so forth. The next piece of it, I'll take another 10 seconds. The next piece of it, we made it mandatory part of our immigration process. So if people are flying to a different region, I have to pass a test. Now, passing a test is, it's not punitive, but it's actually to check your understanding. Do you really understand, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much, what we're doing, and it's working well with us so far.
Great, and as I hear you, when I was trying to put this question also, I think it is oxymoronic to put communication barrier together. Because if you are communicating, then, you are actually cutting off the barriers. So thank you for this, Samuel. Ruby, this one's for you. For us to learn from your experience, what kind of interventions have you experienced and implemented as a practitioner to build DEI?
So the time is up on the screen, but I'll answer this because it's very close to my heart. In order to build diversity, equity, and inclusion in an organization works at two levels. One is at a systemic level where you work on policies, practices, initiatives. Other is at a mindset level, at an individual level. Trust me, that is more difficult. Even if you have the best of the policies, but a manager doesn't know how to leverage it for the team, is where the challenge comes. So it starts with education. How do you sensitize people on inclusion, on psychological safety? Because microaggression is still very much happening within organizations. So how do you educate your people managers? By the way, there's an interesting term given by Harvard Business Review, which is called benevolent sexism. That means a person or a manager feels that it is very difficult to give feedback to women. So check out that term. But I would like to talk about something which is very close to my heart. I follow this report of McKinsey and Lean In, which says, which has come up with a concept called broken rung. We talk about glass ceiling, but this is broken rung, where a woman misses out her first promotion as a people manager, and that impacts her self-efficacy, confidence, and also her ability to perform. That is where we created a program which was a 9-month-long program, which was an amalgamation of intervention, mentoring, sponsorship, and workplace projects, and which was a huge hit. We had 25 women participants, and half of them got promoted to the next level as a people manager role. So, because I very strongly believe if we fix the broken rung, we will be able to have more women actually breaking the glass ceiling in the boardroom. That's one. Second, if we really want to build a culture of inclusion where we have people representing gender, LGBTQ, people with disability, we need to have a very strong sensitization ecosystem, because we don't want employees to patronize towards people with disability. We want them to empathize with them. So I think these 2-3 things are very close to my heart. Also, we spoke a lot about millennials and Gen Z. We talk a lot about what they want, but why do they want is something that we created. We actually went to people managers and told, why do a millennial or a Gen Z behave like that? Because when we did our research, we realized generation is not only myopic to a definition of year, but it is also the experience that they commonly share during that time. Well, I have a knack of research. I took 7 years to complete my doctorate, and I keep going back to empirical investigations. But 3 things precisely, addressing the broken rung, and I'm very proud that I created a program in-house and made it a success. A very strong sensitization session, and a very strong session on how do you deal with multi-generation. So thank you, that's about it.
Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate you helping us know and learn from your experience. I personally think I've started taking baby steps, and these are some of the quick tips and tricks that I'm going to copy paste and, customize definitely, but copy paste to see if they can help us with the success that you all are, reaping the benefit of. So thank you so much for your time.
I would like to invite Ms. Seema Saraugi, Head of Learning and Development at Bharat Pay, to please join us on the dais.